Hey everybody. Good evening. Pardon me. Welcome to TMI Live number 50, I believe. UMI Looms large. I think this is 50. I lose track a little bit now and then when I miss a week, and I think I've missed the last 2 weeks. But here we are. It's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. And I am here in the library of Eric McLuhan, headquarters of the McLuhan Institute, where just about each week I spend a few hours in Eric McLuhan's library, documenting, inventorying, exploring, reading, having fun in his library with his books and all the artifacts contained here. But that's not what I'm doing this week, because this Saturday begins Understanding Media Intensive, which is the class that I threatened to do, and people said do it, and then I said okay, and now I'm doing it, and it starts this Saturday, which is great. It's a little bit terrifying, but any adventure should be a little bit terrifying. Mainly, I'm looking forward to it as it's giving me the opportunity to dive into this book, Understanding Media, in a way which I haven't before, which is, not just looking at my own learning, but, to lead other people through the text, which is a different way to approach something, obviously, maybe. So I'm going to speak for a few minutes on that tonight, because it's on my mind, obviously. This is the copy of the book I'm going to be using because it is the latest edition, the 2003 critical edition of Understanding Media, edited by Terry Gordon. And I chose this particular because I think it's the easiest to get, and it includes a bunch of extra things, such as both introductions that Marshall wrote for the book, the main meat of the book, and then a few things in the back which are kind of fun, including a bit of the project in Understanding New Media. But not the whole thing. An editorial decision was made to cut out the chapters of the project in Understanding New Media, which became part of this book, which is a shame, I think. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I came about this whole thing because I felt that it was a shame that in media studies courses, although this is considered a foundational work in media studies courses tend to not spend a lot of time on it, for many reasons. I mean, in any overview course, you only have so much time to spend on each text, but I felt that a single class or even part of a class was not enough time to do justice to a book like this. In fact, I felt you could spend an entire semester. In the end, I decided to lead 12 classes, and even then I realized, I have to pick and choose because really this book represents, I think, a lifetime's learning. I've certainly spent 20 years reading this book, and anybody else could too. It doesn't mean you're a slow reader or a slow learner. It's just that there's a lot in here. It's a kind of a storehouse of a whole bunch of different things, as I'll go into in the course. Right, so I decided to pick a focus for my classes on the book, and that focus became obvious because my whole focus with the McLuhan Institute is on what's practical, taking away the theoretical things and trying to pull out bits that are useful to us today, because I think that's what we need. We need the ability to understand technologies, not only today but going forward. And that's, I think, Marshall McLuhan's lasting contribution was finding and developing and leaving behind the very many methods he came up with for understanding technologies and their effects on people in particular. So my focus is that, and because of that, I'm going to concentrate on part 1 of the book. The book is divided into 2 parts. Part 1, 7 chapters. Part 2, just about 30, just under 30 chapters. And the first part is techniques. The second part is the application of those techniques onto different technologies like clothing, housing, money, clocks, print, comics, etc., etc. So the main meat of the course is going to be those first 7 chapters. Before I get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about about Marshall McLuhan and how he came to write that book. So, giving a little bit of context. The first class, which starts this Saturday, is actually going to be jam-packed. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. One of them is this book, Practical Criticism, which in a way kicks off understanding media, as it was a very, very influential book on Marshall McLuhan. It was written by I.A. Richards, who was a teacher of Marshall's at Cambridge. This came out in 1928, and a couple years later, when Marshall got there, it was still a hot topic. It's a new way of understanding poetry and literature, and it's about literary criticism anyway, a study of literary judgment, and it puts forth a system, a way to judge literature on its own merits. It's an interesting book. Actually, I only recently got this copy and have been reading it for the first time. I have an understanding of its role, but had never actually sat down to read it. So I'm not teaching practical criticism, but I will be talking a bit about it. And then I'll be talking a little bit about this book, Understanding Poetry, by Clint Brooks and Robert Penn Warren. This came out in 1938. This is actually Eric McLuhan's copy given to him by his father, Marshall McLuhan, Christmas 1961. Actually, it says from mother and dad. And it says, Clint Brooks, a long-standing friend of mine, did revolutionize the teaching of literature in USA with this book. And this is the application of practical criticism in the United States. It's a little note by Dad there. This is an interesting book. It's got a lot of annotations and clippings and things from Eric in it, which I won't go into right now. What else do we have? Oh, I'm going to be, I'll be reading this introduction. It's titled Forward is Forearmed. And this was the introduction that Eric McLuhan wrote for Understanding Media for that 2003 critical edition. Eric was originally the editor of that edition. Various things happened. I don't know the whole story, so I won't go into it. But Terry Gordon ended up taking over the editorship, and he did a great job, I'm sure. One thing I won't be doing in my course is discussing Terry Gordon's editorial comments throughout. I'll just kind of pretend they don't exist, because I have no, authority or real reason to speak about his words. So I'm just going to concentrate on the McLuhan side of things. Eric didn't end up finishing the editorialship of the book, but he did write an introduction for it, which hasn't been published, as far as I know. But it deserves to be looked at, and it's helpful in understanding media. So we're going to go into it. There's that. What else? Well, this is a big part of what's going to help us through the journey. And these are 3 copies of Understanding Media, which Marshall owned. The first, this is pretty cool. This is a presentation copy from the publisher. I've shown these before. If you've watched TMI Live in the past, you've seen these things. But McGraw-Hill Book Company, December 16th, 1964. To Dr. Marshall McLuhan, Director, Center for Culture and Technology. Dear Dr. McLuhan, on behalf of all your friends here at McGraw-Hill, I take pleasure in sending you this rather handsome addition to your library. Please accept our best wishes for a happy holiday season. So the year that Understanding Media was published, the publisher sent him a nice leather-bound copy. There isn't a lot in here for us to use. There are a couple little notes. Was there one just inside the title page? Excuse me while I talk to myself. Anyway, yeah. Oh, that's weird. This library is so weird, and these books are so weird. They seem to serve up things. Here's a fun little annotation. I don't know if you can read it. Well, it's backwards anyway. What's a metaphor? What's a metaphor? That's funny because I actually was typing that earlier. Somebody was talking about if you can't have an effect without a cause, can you have a cause without an effect? And Marshall liked to say the effect shall precede the cause, or what's a metaphor? So there are a couple annotations in there, not many, but it's these 2 copies which are going to be our, speaking of metaphors, our guides, our compasses, our astrolabs in Understanding Media Intensive, which is first. So these are 2 copies of Understanding Media that Marshall gave to his wife Corinne. Here at the top is her name in her handwriting, and Marshall wrote, "For an extension of me that can never be loved or thanked as she deserves from her proud husband, Marshall." I really should see which of these. I think this is the later addition to that. And this also has Corinne's name in it. But these have quite a lot of notes by Marshall in them, which are going to be helpful to us in looking at the text, because at the top here it says penciled in notes are for UMR. Okay, underneath it says understanding is not a point of view. Does this one say UMR as well? No, but it does have a short form of the same statement. Understanding is not a point of view. UMR, so Understanding Media came out in 1964. In 1972 or so, Marshall undertook to do a 10th anniversary edition, which he and my father called UMR, Understanding Media Revised. And the idea was to do a 10th anniversary edition. The publisher's idea was that Marshall would write a new introduction or something. But Marshall went a whole lot further and decided he would use that opportunity to look at some of the criticisms the book faced, namely that it wasn't scientific. And so UMR became a project to find a scientific method, essentially, for understanding media. He said, well, okay, so what can we say about media that is scientific? How can we make scientific statements about media? what laws might there be of media? What can we say about all media, not just one medium, but where are the laws of media? And they ended up my father Eric and Marshall. Eric started working with Marshall in the late 60s, worked with him through to his death in 1980, and worked for decades after. Marshall and Eric worked together on this UMR project and basically everything else from when my dad started working with him. And my dad ended up publishing Laws of Media in 1988. It took him a while to get it all done after Marshall passed on, in which he presents the 4 laws of media that Marshall and Eric came up with, the things which are common to all technologies. So these are really, really valuable books because they contain Marshall's annotations and comments on the material. At the head of each chapter, there are a lot of notes, a fair amount of notes, and then coming through on various pages, he marks out things. In that book, same with this one. That's the same page I just showed you in this book. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to be teaching this class Saturday afternoons from 2 to 5. The loose idea was to be half lecture by myself, followed by a question and answer period. I think it'll probably be more like 2 hours with a break of me talking about the material, followed by question and answer. But we'll see how that all goes. I can talk on and on and on about this stuff. But what I'm going to try and do, keeping in mind that my object is helping people navigate their way through understanding media, I'm going to pull out what I think are more challenging aspects of each of the chapters that we're looking at, and I'll spend a little bit of time talking about them, using my experience over the years grappling with it. I'll also use Marshall's annotations to expand or pull out certain things, shed some light on things. I'll use Eric's introduction and the things that he's written. I also have this, I forgot to bring it down, but I have a scrapbook that Marshall McLuhan put together of newspaper clippings, reviews, but also some articles, which shed even more light on the subject matter. There are even some letters in the book, Letters of Marshall McLuhan, that might come in. I'm going to gather together all the relevant materials I can find from week to week to draw some light on the subject and help us all find our way through. I hope it'll be a mutual exploration. I know that I've already learned a lot more and expect to learn, and will lean on my audience for questions to help us find even more things to comment on and explore with each other. So I have a dozen or so people signed up, more than a dozen, which is great. There's room for more. If you head over to themcluhaninstitute.com, there's a link to my partner in this, which is Gray Area. Gray Area is a San Francisco nonprofit that sort of focuses on arts, entertainment, culture, technology. And they have an online platform for doing webinars, seminars, and teaching and workshops, things exactly like what I'm doing. And when they heard that I was going to do this, they jumped on and offered to help me with it, which is amazing. It means that I don't have to worry about the technology side of things, hopefully. And it'll be a great user experience for you on the other end. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you will join us. I'm not sure how many McLuhan Institute lives I'm going to be doing, because this is going to be consuming a lot of my time in the coming weeks. But I'll try and check in here and there. If you have any questions, you can email me always, andrew@themcluhaninstitute.com. And I hope to catch you in UMI. Thanks, everybody. Take care.